Hello and welcome to Hosk's weekly roundup. This is where I go through the interesting articles I've found this week in the world of CRM. A little bit of interaction with some of my readers in my blog this week. One person was criticizing me for a blog written in December the 15th, 2011. It was a very basic blog, but it shows you how to put WordPress code in a WordPress blog. And they just said, how about a catchier title? How about a better headline? That's fair enough. But then he criticised the name of my blog is boring. The name of the Hosk is never boring. Another person, he said that he sent me a couple of articles, which is good. I like that. If you have any articles, please send them to @BenHosk, and then I can include them in next week's one if I think they are worthy. So, article of the week, let's crack on. All about autosave. This is quite good, I think. This is one of the big new features in Serum 2013, that it automatically saves after every 30 seconds. I'm still not quite sure why or why not. I don't know. I guess having the choice is useful, but I don't know. I can't remember anyone really wanting to put this in. But okay, you get used to it, I guess, and then you start worrying about saving. This is like a blog which covers all of the kind of gotchas and tricks of the trade about auto saving, like the fact that that it's set on by default if autosave is enabled. The save button does not appear whilst updating existing records. There's a little save button in the bottom corner, which I didn't see for ages. Control S saves the form you're on. Autosave triggers after you've tabbed out of a field that was being edited. This is quite weird, actually. So if you leave sort of half editing a field, then that one won't actually get updated, which is tricky. If you close the form down, it will save, even if you've turned off auto saving, and you can turn off auto saving. Autosave is at org level setting, not an entity level setting. So you can enable it for all. There's a new save type of 70, which has been added in to basically, if one of these happens in JavaScript, you get a 70. This means it's auto saving. So you can either ignore that or do something different than a sort of traditional save. This one seems a bit weird. Look, autosave affects auditing. If you have auditing enabled, every autosave will be reported as a new entity in the audit blog. So, audits are going to be chock-a-block, aren't they? Anyway, that's a good article. Goes through lots of different things about autosave. That's my article of the week. Service Pack 1. So, Serum 2013 Service Pack 1 will be released second quarter of 2014. It's got absolutely loads in it. There's just loads and loads and loads of stuff. So go there. This is one of those articles. Sometimes I'm not even sure to include it here because it's just been tweeted and sent around by everyone. I think we all know that by now. Now this is an interesting one. CRM support. Basically, they give you a way how to. There's a parameter called behavior in bulk edit form, and by changing this in your customization, manually editing the customization XML, you can set it so you can for fields that aren't included automatically, you can add them in. So like parent account, you set this value and then you can you better bulk edit it. So it's a little cheeky way of how to sort of set certain fields to be able to be bulk edited, which could be useful. because it's quite a good feature to have. This is another good one. Working out SQL queries that generated from your CRM fetch XML. Basically, this shows you how to sort of most queries in CRM are fetch XML queries, and this basically shows you a way of, depending on SQL tracing, of being able to work out what fetch XML, what it turns into an SQL query, so you can kind of see what SQL queries are coming from your fetch XML queries, and it goes through turning on the tracer and then sort of locating it, and you can see performance and a few other facts about that. Useful if you're having a slow running system, I'd imagine. Microsoft have finally made, so CRM 2011 Rollup 17 is out and it's compatible, so CRM 2011 IE is compatible with IE 11 and Windows 8. There's not much else to say about that. This one is a walkthrough on how to import marketing list members in Microsoft CRM. It's quite good. It's quite a thorough one. It goes through setting up the Excel files and importing. So this is one of those articles which is very useful when you need to do it. Otherwise, you just put it on the back there. This is an interesting one. Once again, the support blog. So if you've ever raised a call with the Microsoft support team, they'll get you to run this diagnostic tool, and this article just tells you what it actually does. And it kind of gets event viewer logs, CRM server, client trace files, details of the operating system hardware and software, what roll-ups you've got, kind of registry settings, plugin information. Just gets loads of stuff. So that just kind of was quite interesting to know why they always get you to do it. Robert Pellady, who recently passed the CRM MB2 703 exam, which I'm studying for, he's just got a nice article which tells you how you can override the created on date when you're importing data. So sometimes if you're importing maybe lead information or activities, you don't want to be created all on the created date on for today when they're imported. You want the created on date of when they actually happened or wherever you got that kind of source information from. So it kind of adds an override created on field, and then he sets the created on to and then imports it, and then he's got the value in there. So it's basically kind of importing, just overwriting the created on date. And that's a useful thing to know you can do, and useful that he's given you sort of a step-by-step instructions. Dave Berry this week was the MVP who was answering the questions from the Hosk. That's a very funny and amusing and interesting question and answer session. It's always interesting to see how the CRM MVPs got to be an MVP, what kind of route they've taken and what they've done before, and what their kind of daily life is in a work sense. Okay, this one, when you create a new entity, a custom entity in CRM, you have this choice of whether it's user owned or organization owned, and this discusses it, because basically if you have an organization one, so this is often config settings. If you create a new entity called config settings, now you don't need this to be owned by individual users, so you can make this an organization, and then users can either see it or they can't, and it takes away the owner, the owner field, and it takes away a bunch of those fields on there, and it's sort of just organizational based. And so every time I create one of these, I always spend a few minutes debating on whether it should be user owned or organization owned, and sort of you've got that danger behind the decision is that if once you choose it, you can't go back and change it. So You need to make sure you get it right. And I'm always sort of keen on trying to get an organizational one in there if I can, because you don't need that owner stuff really for some entities. You always kind of have to debate about the security level of that entity. Should it gives you a few levels of security of like business unit or user owned, and so you need to sort of, this is one of the things to consider when you're choosing user versus organization. And it comes to the conclusion I have sometimes that if you're not sure whether it should be user owned, see all, or see it or don't see it, best to leave it user owned, because you can hide the other fields and then you've got the ability there to sort of add security on if you need to. But if it's organization owned, you can't really go back at that point, and once they've started putting data in there, you're stuck with it. So yeah, if I'm not sure, I usually urge on the side of caution, same as suggested here. I mean, it's quite an interesting article, just gives you a few things to think about. Right, an article from the Hosk, Serum 2000 plugin step-by-step guide. Got a video as well. Basically, this creates a plugin that will be firing on the creation of an account, and it checks to see if it is an account field and if it is a create message, and it then creates a follow-up task for a couple of weeks' time. It's just a nice, simple, step-by-step guide with some screenshots, and the code is, you can also copy it there. So if you want to make a plugin, go through this, watch the video. Very easy. This one's interesting. I'm about to study this for my MB2 703 exam. It just says the CRM owner teams, which is your basic team that was in CRM 2011, and access teams. Now, access teams were a new feature in CRM 2013, and I'm not totally sure why the point of them in a way, because why. I understand that you can sort of give dynamics of ad hoc privileges to certain records by turning on access teams, but I didn't really understand why you'd want to do this and what scenarios it's useful. But I'm now starting to see a few articles now and starting to understand it a little bit. I will understand it a lot more next week once I study it and then do a video and blog about it. But it compares them versus for, and it's interesting. So like owner teams, when a security role is required to access the records by business needs, so that's kind of when you want security based on there. Teams used for service scheduling must be owner teams. When there's high volumes of data via ownership of business unit access, where access teams are useful if there's rapidly changing team memberships, allows for 1,000 team members per user, memberships per user. Okay. Individual record-based access, owner of the record allowed to define access to other users, and it can accommodate varying levels of group access to types of records. So it just talks about access teams. One thing it actually says is that access teams don't use the POA table. This is the principal object access. This is basically where it's a table which holds all the security privileges you have for each user and team, and basically this can get quite big, and in CRM4 it could get massively big and really slow things down because you have to query this table every time, and if it was too big it would take ages. They added some scripts into Serum 2011 which kind of indexed it and trimmed bits out and made it a whole lot faster. But access teams don't use it at all, I don't think. So that is a big advantage. It won't sort of slow down the system by using these. Whereas if you're sharing records with users or teams, it will write rows into the POA table and could have some sort of performance effects at stage possibly. Workflow ownership. I don't have to look at this one really. This Mitch Milam he disabled his user. His user had a number of workflows owned by that user, and he found that the workflow stopped working because his user was disabled. So this is something you should consider when you're working with workflows. That if they're owned by lots of different people and then you disable those people, it could stop the system from working, particularly the workflows. And I think this is one of the reasons why you should, when you set up a system, you should have like a CRM admin user and allow him to own things like workflows, because then you're not going to disable him because he's a generic user. Whereas if you have an individual user, if that person leaves or is off the project, you might disable him and then go knock-on effect of bashing out a load of workflows. A simple dialogue with query. So another Hosk blog. I go through creating a dialogue. Dialogues are weird. They're like workflows, but just odd. They don't work quite the same. You get used to them, but it just takes you a little bit of time to understand how they work, and particularly you have a prop pages, you have prompt and response, and there's a different bunch of choices you can have, like text and lookups, and you have this query CRM data, which took me a while to work out how that works. And so this goes through making a simple dialogue using a bunch of the different options you've got there, so that if you haven't used dialogue before, and I hadn't before then, really it's quite useful, and you could just follow along, do it yourself, and learn about it yourself there. Retrieving a record. This is an interesting one. Often as a developer, you're trying to get a GUID to test some stuff, put it into your Visual Studio Code, and they here, Customer Effective, have a system of creating a bookmark basically, and then in it's got some JavaScript, and this JavaScript pops out a little alert with the GUID in, which you can just copy out. So that's a nice way to get the GUID in Serum 2013. Create a command bar. So this is Scott Duro, CRM MVP. He goes through using his Ribbon Workbench, which is a fantastic tool, one you should definitely use. And basically, if you create a new custom entity, click that you want to display it as an activity. He runs through using the workbench, Ribbon Workbench, and then adding a button. He's got some GIFs here which show you how it works. If nothing else, this is a good kind of tutorial on using the Ribbon Workbench. Ribbon Workbench is it has so many options that sometimes you're not sure quite what to do, because there are options and things lurking and right clicks away. So this is a really good way just stepping through and adding in a new button for your activity. So well worth having a look there. Quick Hosk dev tip. Basically, if you have a lookup field in CRM, when you add that field, you should have ID on the end, because this will just make it clear to anyone, any developers or any users, that when they see that field, that because it's got ID on, that they'll know it's a GUID, it's a lookup to another entity, and you can then use that to sort of retrieve more details from it. So that's just best practice. Microsoft Code does it. It's best practice, so other people should do it. So if you have your code, if you get in the habit of doing this, then when you work on other projects and everyone else does it, you'll sort of be at home looking at that. Microsoft Dynamics Community Badges. you can collect these badges on the Microsoft Dynamics sort of community. You get them for answering forum questions, logging in your profile, following users, writing blogs, etc. And if you get enough of these, you get badges and you get levels. And this just goes through, tells you what they are. Put some good URLs for kind of like leaderboards you can look at to see where you are amongst your peers. And it just sort of a good general introduction to badges, I think. Here is my virtual CRM buddy, Eliza. She's done a simple approval process. It's a no-code solution, and it kind of just goes through creating it using business process flows. It's a good kind of step through there. So well done there. You should definitely have a look at that one. This is the tool. One of the links that was sent in to me by Bartholomew. Right, so I didn't say that correctly. There's a dynamic CRM Bing map custom tool, and he kind of links it in here, and you can see that it's linked all those contacts onto the map. So I mean, it's a free tool. I'm always a fan of a free tool, so it'd be worth trying that out to see if it could offer you some functionality you need. Another video about access teams, just running through that, and that's it really. You can go, if that's not enough, you can go back and watch last week's video or click on the links for last week's top picks. Right, well there we go, that's the video this week. I hope you enjoyed the little roundup of the articles for you. I will put a link to the articles in the video in the description. Thank you very much and have a great weekend.